You are walking through a busy place and you see a girl you really like. You feel your body stop. Your feet do not move. Your mouth stays shut. You watch her walk past and you just stay there. Then you start to feel bad and you keep replaying it in your head for hours. Do you feel tense every time you think about going up to a girl? Do you watch other guys do it and wonder what is wrong with you? Do you tell yourself you will do it next time and then you avoid it again? I used to do the exact same thing. I kept making the same small mistakes every time without even noticing. In this video, I'm going to tell you what I changed and what I started doing differently step by step so you can copy it. If you keep listening, I'll show you what you need to do so that when you see a girl you like, you actually walk over and talk to her instead of freezing. So this all started on a day where I woke up and felt tired of my own hesitation. I looked back at the last few weeks and saw the same pattern. I would see girls I wanted to talk to on the street, in class, in coffee shops, and I would keep finding reasons to wait. I felt annoyed with myself. That morning, I told myself this day had to be different. I decided I was going to go out, talk to a bunch of girls, and test some very clear rules in my head instead of just hoping I felt confident by chance. Before I left my place, I sat at my desk and wrote 3 short sentences on my notes app. Each one was a simple rule. The first one was about warming up before talking to anyone. The second was about how I wanted to think about rejection. The third was about how I wanted to see myself when I walked up to a girl. I didn't write anything deep, just quick reminders I could glance at during the day. I put my phone in my pocket, grabbed my keys, and walked out. As soon as I stepped outside, I knew I had to start my warm-up. I didn't want to wait until I was standing in front of a girl I liked and then try to turn on confidence. So I made myself do small social actions right away. At the first crosswalk, I made eye contact with the guy standing next to me and greeted him. Normally, I would keep my eyes on my phone, but this time I forced my head up. A little further down the street, I passed a group of students. I raised my hand and held it up until one of them slapped it. It felt awkward, but it also woke me up. On the next block, I saw a tourist couple holding a map. I already knew the area well, but I walked over and asked if they needed help finding a certain building. They asked about a museum, I pointed it out, and we parted ways. It was nothing special, but after a few of these short interactions, my body started to feel more alert. My voice came out clearer, my shoulders felt less tense. It already felt easier to talk. Then I did the warm-up I always secretly dread. I picked a spot where there were people walking past but not a huge crowd, dropped my backpack next to a bench and got down on the ground to do push-ups on the sidewalk. I could feel people looking and I felt my face get a little hot. I kept going anyway. When I stood up, my heart was beating faster, not from the push-ups but from the attention. That feeling of being watched was exactly what usually scared me when I thought about approaching girls, and now I was already feeling it before I had even talked to one. As I kept walking toward the busy part of town, I stayed in that warm-up mode. I complimented a guy's jacket. I asked someone else what time it was, even though I had my phone. I held a door open and actually looked at the person as they walked through. These were tiny actions, but by the time I reached the crowded area near campus, I felt loose. My body already knew how to start little interactions, so the idea of walking up to an attractive girl didn't feel as extreme anymore. When I got to a spot with a lot of foot traffic, I stopped for a second and checked my phone. I looked at the first rule I had written earlier: warm up before approaching. I felt like I had actually done that, so I told myself it was time for the first real approach. No more delaying. I looked around and saw a girl walking alone toward a building, holding her backpack by one strap, moving with that rushed but calm walk that students have when they know they're almost late but not quite. I picked her as my first approach. I walked toward her and matched her pace. My brain wanted to wait and think of a perfect line, but I forced myself to say the first simple thing I had in mind. I told her I thought she was really cute and that I wanted to say hi. That was it. No clever opener, nothing fancy. She looked a little surprised. She told me her name was Gabby, and I told her mine. She mentioned she only had a few seconds before she had to go to office hours. That answer made me feel rushed, but I didn't want to just step back and end it right away, so I stretched the conversation a bit. I asked her how her night had gone, if she had done anything for Halloween, and she told me she hadn't done anything, and that she had a lot of work. She mentioned she was pre-med with labs all the time. I could tell she really was busy and not just saying it. Her eyes kept flicking toward the building behind me. I knew I didn't have much time, so I decided to push once more instead of giving up. I told her I wanted to see her again and asked if she would want to hang out another time. She didn't jump at it. She gave me a kind of half answer that sat somewhere between yes and no, but she didn't walk away. That was enough for me. I took out my phone and held it out. She took it, typed her number, and handed it back. For a second, my phone froze on the screen, and we had this weird pause where neither of us knew if it saved. But then it went through. She said bye and headed into the building. I stepped away from the entrance and walked toward a quieter corner. The whole interaction felt awkward. My timing was off, my conversation was forced, and it didn't feel smooth at all. But I was still holding a new number in my phone. That contrast hit me. It reminded me how much we overestimate how perfect we need to be. I had stumbled through it and still reached the goal. That alone took a lot of pressure off the next one. After I calmed down a bit, I moved back to the main path. I decided to extend the warm-up a little more before the next clear approach. I walked past a table where a club was handing out flyers and let them give me one, asked a quick question about their event, and walked on. I asked someone near a bike rack if they knew where a certain library was, even though I had already passed it. I did not need the information. I just wanted to keep my voice moving. Then I looked at the second note I had written that morning. It was about rejection. I had written it in a very blunt way, so I couldn't dance around it. I told myself that rejection had to become an actual goal for the day, not something I tried to avoid. I picked a number in my head. I wanted at least 5 clear rejections before I went home. That way, every time someone turned me down, I could mark it as progress instead of failure. Not long after that, I saw another girl walking alone with headphones on. I sped up, got her attention, and started a conversation. She took one headphone out and listened. I asked a basic question about a place to grab coffee nearby and kept it light. She answered, but her body stayed half turned away. I decided to take the risk anyway. I told her I found her attractive and that I wanted to see her again. She told me she had a boyfriend. That answer used to crush me. In the past, I would replay it in my head for days and pick apart everything I said before that moment. This time, I treated it differently. I reminded myself of the rule. I saw it as one checkmark toward my rejection goal. I smiled, ended the interaction in a friendly way, and walked away. It still stung a little, but it faded much faster because now it was part of the plan. A few minutes later, I ended up near a main intersection where a lot of students cross between classes. I stopped by a corner and looked around. I wanted another shot that felt a bit more structured than just rushing up. So I used the coffee question again, this time with a different girl who was waiting near the crosswalk. I asked her if there was a small independent coffee shop around that area, not one of the big chains. She pointed across the street, explained they had simple drinks and good espresso, and stood there in a relaxed way while she told me. She seemed friendly and open, and we had a short back and forth about what drinks we each liked. I could tell she didn't have a problem talking. So I added the extra step again. I told her I thought she was really cute and that I wanted to hang out with her sometime. Her expression changed slightly, and she told me she had a boyfriend as well. This time I was already ready for it. I used the same friendly line I always use to end it without tension, kept my tone light, and walked off. As I walked away from that one, I noticed something important. The rejection felt almost neutral. It didn't drag my mood down. I didn't feel that heavy drop in my stomach. It felt almost like getting a parking ticket you already knew was coming, because you parked somewhere you shouldn't. Annoying, but expected. Repeating that process shaped how my body reacted. That was the whole point of treating rejection as practice. I took a short break and sat on a low wall near a tree. I checked my phone and counted in my head how many real approaches I had done and how many rejections I already had. The numbers were not huge, but they were higher than what I usually did in a whole week. I sat there for a few minutes, drank some water, watched people walk past, and let my nerves calm down again. Then I stood up, looked back at my notes, and moved on to the third rule. The third rule was about how I saw myself when I walked up to a girl. Normally, my brain would tell me that she was out of my league, or that she had no reason to be interested. That attitude would leak out through my tone, my posture, even the way I paused between words. So for the rest of the day, I decided I would flip that on purpose. Before each approach, I would stand still for a second and tell myself that the girl was going to like me. Not in a forced fantasy way, just in a neutral, calm way. I wanted that belief to show in the way I moved. I tested it with the next girl I saw, sitting on a bench looking at her phone. I stood up straight, took a breath, and imagined that she was already curious about me before I even spoke. With that in my head, I walked over and started talking. The words felt smoother. I did not rush. My voice was louder, without sounding tense. She ended up being busy and not free to hang out, but the interaction itself felt better than most of my old ones, because my body language had changed. After that, I tried the same thing a few more times. Each time, I forced myself to assume attraction before I even opened my mouth. I noticed I smiled more naturally. I did not search for signs that she disliked me. I just talked. Some girls were in a hurry and ended it quickly. Some stayed and talked longer, even if it didn't go anywhere. But I could see that my own assumption about myself had a real effect on the vibe. Later in the afternoon, the streets started to feel a bit more packed. People were finishing classes and work, and the sidewalks filled up. I used that as another small challenge. I weaved through the crowd and picked out moving targets instead of only girls who were standing still. That always made me more nervous. I approached one girl at a bus stop, another walking out of a store, another coming down some steps. Some of them barely slowed down. One of them just shook her head and kept walking when I tried to start talking. I accepted all of those as progress. After a while, I reached a different part of campus where there was a wide open area and a long path cutting through it. I decided I wanted one more solid interaction to end the day on. I told myself the next girl who passed alone and wasn't on the phone would be the one, and I would not let myself back out of it. I stood there for a moment, palms a little sweaty, and waited. That's when I saw her. She was walking toward me wearing simple clothes, nothing flashy, just comfortable campus clothes, and she carried herself in a pretty relaxed way. I could tell she was a student by the way she glanced around. My brain immediately started trying to think of a perfect opener again. I didn't want to use the same coffee question. My mind went blank for a second. Then I remembered that it had just been Halloween. As she got close enough, I stepped forward and stopped her. I asked what she had dressed up as for Halloween. She told me she had gone as a character from a cartoon, and she explained it briefly. She said the costume had been simple and that she already owned most of the clothes she needed for it. We talked about that for a bit. I asked her if she had worn any other costumes this year, and she said she hadn't. During that conversation, I felt my brain start to slow down again. My energy dipped for a moment. I didn't know what topic to move to next. My mind felt empty, and there was a short pause where neither of us spoke. In the past, that would have been the point where I backed away and ended the conversation with some random excuse. This time, even though I hated how stuck I felt, I made myself move forward. I told her the real reason I had stopped her. I said I thought she was really cute and that I wanted to get to know her. Saying that out loud felt uncomfortable because my mind was in that frozen state, but I did it anyway. She asked if I studied there. I told her I had just graduated a couple of weeks earlier. She told me she was still in her first year. We talked for a bit about how she liked the school so far and what it felt like being new there. I could feel that I still had nothing else lined up to talk about. Instead of forcing more small talk and making it even more awkward, I decided to be direct one more time. I told her that I didn't have anything else to say in that moment, but that I wanted to see her again, and asked if she would be down to hang out at some point. She didn't react in an extreme way. She didn't seem blown away, but she also didn't pull back. She agreed, took my phone, and typed her number in. I saved it, we said goodbye, and she walked off down the path. As she walked away, I finally let myself feel how off my game I had been. My mind had been slow, my words had been clumsy, I had frozen in the middle, but I still ended up with her number. That pattern kept repeating all day. The approaches did not feel perfect. I did not feel like some smooth, untouchable person. I felt human and a bit shaky. But the rules I had set for myself that morning kept pushing me into action. I kept going for a little while after that. I walked to another area closer to some restaurants and tried a few more approaches with smaller stakes. I asked someone which place had better food. I asked another person if they knew how late a certain store stayed open. I used those small conversations to keep my warm-up going even though I had already done several big approaches. A couple more times I told a girl I found her attractive and got rejected again. Each time I mentally added one more number to my rejection count. By early evening I felt tired, but in a good way. My legs were sore from walking and standing. My throat felt slightly dry from talking so much. I went into a small cafe to sit down and drink something. I ordered a simple drink, sat by the window, and finally scrolled through my messages. I looked at the new contacts in my phone. A couple of them had already replied to a short text I had sent. Some had not. I did not obsess over it. At that point, the bigger victory was the fact that I had actually gone out and talked to all these people. While I sat there, I opened my Notes app again and looked at the 3 rules. Warm up, treat rejection as progress, assume attraction. I thought about how each one had actually played out in real situations that day. The warm-up had stopped me from walking around in my head. The rejection rule had kept my mood stable even when girls turned me down. The assumption of attraction had changed the energy of my body more than I expected. When I left the cafe, it was already starting to get dark. I walked back home through quieter streets. I passed a few more people, but I didn't start any more conversations. I didn't feel the need to squeeze out one last approach. I had already done more than enough for the day. My head felt full but calm. I wasn't replaying every single word anymore. I was just walking. Back in my room, I put my phone on the desk and sat on the edge of my bed for a minute. The urge to overanalyze everything hit me for a second, but I pushed it aside. Instead, I took out a notebook and wrote down some very simple notes from the day. I wrote how many girls I had approached, how many numbers I had gotten, how many clear rejections I had collected, and a quick sentence about what felt hard and what felt easier than I expected. After that, I flipped to a clean page and wrote the 3 rules again in bigger letters. I wanted to see them clearly the next time I opened the notebook. I decided that this wouldn't be a one-time experiment. The next time I planned to go somewhere with a lot of people, I would do the same thing. Warm up with small interactions, aim for a certain number of rejections, assume attraction before each approach. Then I plugged in my phone, glanced at the new messages one last time, and set my alarm for the next morning. I laid out some clothes on the chair so I wouldn't waste time deciding what to wear the next day. I liked the idea of keeping this momentum going instead of letting it fade. After that, I turned off the light, feeling tired but steady, already knowing that the next time I saw a girl I liked on the street, I was much more likely to actually walk over and talk to her.